What's up, kids?
What's going on?
Welcome back to Snackcast. We are plugging along through the Great Cholesterol Myth. Pretty good book so far. And today, chapter 5 in the book, it's only our 4th episode. We've been through that. The title is Inflammation and Oxidation.
Okay.
And you may go, what in the world does that have to do with cholesterol? And
What does?
Well, it's actually quite interesting. So let's lay some groundwork here. So what really is inflammation? There's two types, right? Mm-hmm. Do you know them?
No.
There's acute inflammation. It's really simple.
Acute and chronic.
Right. You bang into the door, you cut your finger, you burn yourself.
That's
whatever.
acute. Hard and fast.
Hard and fast, and the body sends immunotherapy. That's not in the book.
No, but your body's going, something's wrong.
The immune system.
We go to the source.
Right. And it sends all these resources to help fix whatever you just did to yourself, right? That is acute.
Right.
So
chronic is always something's wrong.
yeah, and generally with acute, there's a pain threshold. You're very aware it happened. With chronic, there's no pain threshold. It's kind of slowly building. You don't really know it unless you're paying attention to what those potential symptoms. Can I fix your thing, please? Yeah. Represent, right?
Yeah, right.
So that's the difference in acute and chronic. So in terms of cholesterol, what we're talking about is chronic inflammation. And in the book, they actually lay out all the different things that chronic inflammation is a main driver or influence on. What they list is Alzheimer's, diabetes, obesity, arthritis, cancer, neurodegenerative diseases, influenza and pneumonia, chronic liver and kidney diseases, and heart disease. So that's all.
That's just a couple. to name a few.
Just a few, right? So again, circling back to how it matters with cholesterol, I think the main point that they are making in this chapter, and they get kind of into the weeds as to why, but I think the main point they're making is it's the inflammation that matters and not the cholesterol count. Circling back to the prior chapters where the old test of total cholesterol, good and bad, and why it's broken. Well, this is kind of lumping onto that, saying that the total cholesterol count and the number of LDL doesn't matter unless they're inflamed. Right?
And what type are inflamed?
So, fast forwarding, what can cause inflammation of the body and specifically of cholesterol?
We kind of talked about that. Smoking, alcohol, drugs.
Pollution, pesticides.
Sugar, carbs.
Tainted food supply. Again, the pesticides that make it into our foods or the hormones that make it into our foods can definitely affect primarily the LDL.
Yeah. Glyphosate.
Yeah, right. That affects everything.
Yeah.
Sexual performance, brain function, cholesterol, it affects it all. Cancer. All right. So going back to the chapter and kind of the story they're laying out, right, is when you do get this pollution and the smoking and et cetera, it creates the free radicals. And what are free radicals, right? You go back to high school into your
electron, they're out doing their...
They travel in pairs.
Right.
Electrons do, and they circle the atoms. Well, a free radical is when one gets spun off.
Right. And, something's wrong with it.
I think, what was the analogy they used in the book? A free radical is like a freshman or a sophomore.
Yes, on spring break.
At spring break.
They will bond with anything.
They get out of their dorm and they go crazy and will bond with anything. Right. But we've talked about free radicals before and the damage they can do. How do you combat free radicals?
You got to partner with an antioxidant.
Bingo.
Antioxidants can give off an electron and they don't become unstable. Free radicals are unstable when and that's what makes them a free radical.
Right.
They're unstable Adam.
So oxidation as a result of free radicals, they give an example in the book that's pretty clear cut how the oxidation is prevented by the antioxidants. Remember?
I didn't.
The apple slices.
Yes, the apple slices. Right.
You slice up an apple and you set it out on the table, and what happens?
It browns.
Within a few minutes, it begins browning. The way you prevent the browning, and it's actually, if you ever buy the apple slices at the store and you go, how come they're not browning? The whole reason, they coat it in lemon juice. What does lemon juice have?
Vitamin C.
Vitamin C, one of the most powerful antioxidants on the planet, right? So how, again, does that all correlate back to cholesterol? Well, when you're exposed to the pollutants and you create the free radicals, and that affects your cholesterol, it hardens that cholesterol. If you remember in the prior chapter, or maybe the two back, they talk about pattern A and pattern B LDL. And pattern A is light, fluffy, healthy. It can travel all throughout the body without any problem. Pattern B, it's getting smaller, it's getting denser, it's starting to harden, right? So when it's exposed to free radicals, it starts to harden, it starts to get smaller. And then we know what happens, right? From the last chapter is they get lodged in the
side wall.
That single cellular membrane called the
epithelium.
I have it written down.
Yeah.
Endothelium.
Endothelium, yeah.
They get lodged in the endothelium, and then, like we talked about,
there's your chronic inflammation.
Macrophages,
right.
foamy things, fat caps.
So your body's going, something's wrong. Let's deploy the troops.
Right. So, number one, I think, is the inflammation is a precursor to the oxidation. I think it's really the oxidation that
finishes you off.
The trigger,
right.
or the really bad thing. But I mean, I guess that's kind of like, is it the gun or the bullet? Right. They work in tandem.
Well, you think about a house fire, the smoke would be the alarm, but the smoke didn't burn your house down.
Okay, so it's actually interesting. They end the chapter with this analogy, which I think was fairly well done. It's pretty well on point, right? And their thing was that if you can have a forest that's slam full of trees, right? As long as that forest gets adequate rain and maybe is groomed appropriately, right? Dead branches dragged out, whatever. Mm-hmm. The chance of a wildfire is very small. And it doesn't matter how many trees are actually there. You can thin the trees out, but if they become dry, brittle...
You still got a potential for a forest fire.
There's potential for a forest fire. They equate that back to the LDL. Again, that it's not about the count.
So your statins can lower the count, but unless they lower the right...
Unless they help with the inflammation and the pattern B particles that are floating around, which they don't.
And the oxidation?
They don't. Right.
And they don't.
They don't. All they do is reduce the count. So again, you can have a healthy forest, slam full of trees / LDL particles. And if it's healthy, think of the benefits that a healthy forest gives back to us, right?
Right.
Shade, conversion of CO2 to oxygen.
Right.
There's so many benefits. Well, the LDL is very similar, and it has nothing to do with how packed
the forest is.
The count.
Yep.
It has everything to do with how healthy are those LDLs. Are they exposed to free radicals? Are they hardening? Are they getting lodged in the endothelium, which then leads to blockages and plaque and all kinds of things?
Makes a ton of sense.
So it was a really interesting chapter, the correlation. But again, it's not about the total count. Mm-hmm. It's about the health of the forest, the health of those LDL particles. We talked about it last time, right? Is it Is it the number of particles or how they're traveling through the system on the bus or the boats or whatever?
Well, you're bringing up a good point here, though. But it's not only just that; it's the system that they're traveling through. When you have I don't know why I can never say it. Atherosclerosis. When you have hardening of your arteries,
sign language that.
Right. When you're having hardening of your arteries, you're also creating a problem with the transportation of the boats.
Absolutely.
Right? So when they're soft, it's even like, all right, youth and poor diet versus old and poor diet, right? Because because the youth can still eat like crap, and they're A-okay because the transportation, your arteries are soft and malleable, and they haven't been exposed
to all the free radicals,
right.
all the degradation that happens because of that. Yeah.
So they can have all the crappy boats in the water, and they're phenomenal.
In fact, one of the things, and I've never thought about it, they talk about it in this chapter. I didn't even make notes about it, but they talked about how the arterial and vein system throughout our body, we think of it as piping and tubes, and it's not. It is a living organism that bends and flexes and squeezes and does all kinds of things to help us stay healthy. And I never thought about it in that capacity, that it's its own organ. Our cardiovascular system, it's not just tubes. It is a moving reacting, I guess to the brain, but reacting and really trying to help. And this chapter gets really technical back into the macrophages. It gets into how it creates scar tissue, and I don't remember the names, this yellow buttery substance that can cause problems, and how the body reacts to that. And I didn't want to go into those weeds as much as the overarching premise I think they're trying to explain in this chapter is, again, it's just not cholesterol count. It's cholesterol health.
Yeah. And oxidative stress is a big deal, and it makes the case, and you and I have talked about, vitamin C, especially IV vitamin C, and anything from, immune viruses to cancers to everything else. And when you start talking about oxidative stress and that you can reduce that inflammation through the use of high dose vitamin C,
right? And
I mean, if it happens to an apple,
right? And one of the things they kind of talk about early in the chapter is that inflammation and how it affects the entire body, that something that starts in the gums can then go somewhere else, right? Because you brush too hard.
Why cancer goes from an organ to bone. I mean...
Well, they actually, one of the stats, they said that women, I don't know why women specifically, but women with rheumatoid arthritis, right? Mm-hmm. So that's achy knuckles, joints. Women with rheumatoid arthritis, inflammation, are twice as likely to die of a heart attack. Because that inflammation isn't
in the joints,
consolidated to the joints. It's throughout the body. It's causing all kinds of other problems. This is just the acute pain that you feel from it.
And I've seen studies on rheumatoid arthritis that it's actually a virus, and the virus is actually living inside the knuckles and the joints and everything else. So chronic inflammation is what's going on there.
Well, I take turmeric, started recently on the heels of us doing the vitamin thing. I've been taking it twice a day along with my apple cider vinegar twice a day. I don't feel anything yet, but hopefully
who knows what it was
less inflamed.
Right. Yeah, I do the high dose vitamin C in the
my wife is still doing the high dose vitamin C. Well, it's the liquid.
The liquid, yeah. Cool.
All right, that's chapter 5, 4th episode, chapter 5 in the book. Inflammation and oxidation. Pretty big deal.
Very good.
Questions, comments, concerns, hit us at snackcast@yes.fit.
Stay moving.
See ya.